For many able-bodied people, it's not difficult to find ways to have their sexual needs met. But for the one who calls himself queer cripple, the situation is a bit different. There's an inequality that lies here, and that is inaccessibility to sex. Andrew Gerza decided his disability shouldn't prevent him from fulfilling his sexual needs. He wants sex to be more accessible for people with disabilities, because to him, sexual expression is a human right.
My name is Andrew Gerza. I'm a disability awareness consultant, disability content creator. I'm 35, live in downtown Toronto with cerebral palsy, and I'm a wheelchair user. I'm also queer.
My name is Nadia, and I am a criminal defense lawyer and also a sex worker. I did have one person who had a disability as a sex worker. He used a wheelchair, and he told me about it beforehand, and I was like, that's fine, I don't really have I don't have a problem with it. And I went to his place, and it was kind of, I don't want to say awkward, but because he couldn't get it up, so I was unsure how to proceed. He said that it might work and it might not work, and I was like, okay. So then I'm going down on him, but he's like, it's not really working. So it's hard to navigate that kind of experience, I guess. So but I hope he still enjoyed himself. I don't know.
I've been seeing sex workers for 2.5, almost 3 years now. Actually, on the day of this recording, it's the anniversary of one of the times that I was with a sex worker. So it's we're celebrating next week. Sex and disability is still oh wow, you're disabled and you have sex. It's 2020 next year. How is this still how is this still a taboo? Why are we still fighting just to try to get off? It's really sad, because everybody else can go into any sex shop in Toronto or wherever they want to go and say, I want this toy. Disabled people can't. Well, I'm a queer person, so I find that a lot of queer male spaces are not accessible. They don't seem to care about accessibility. They don't look into accessibility enough. They treat you like you're not a person. They'll ask you all the time if your genitalia works, but they won't ask you out on a date. They'll ask you all the time if you can feel whether or not your dick works, but they won't ask you hey, you want to go for coffee? So it's really super ableist. So that's part of why I started working with sex workers, because I was I don't want to deal with all your crap. I just want to get off and have a good time and enjoy myself and not feel like shit afterwards, quite frankly. So paying somebody some money to do that was actually a lifesaver. I feel much more sexually confident and sexually gratified because I get my needs met with somebody that doesn't treat me like crap.
Craigslist used to have a section called Casual Encounters, and I was just hooking up with guys through that. And then I later realized that there was another section on Craigslist. It was called Erotic Services, and you could make money. There's girls making money through that, and so I decided to try it out. So that's how I first started doing sex work. People in the legal profession, when I was outed to some lawyers, nobody said anything to my face, but a few lawyers sent emails and stuff to the Law Society, and I saw those emails, and they were like you might want to look into this. You can't just say you shouldn't think this way, people are going to think what they want to think. I think the best way to fight against stigma is for more sex workers to be more visible and have a voice and speak on behalf of themselves and show how diverse the sex work community is, that there's all types of people who do this.
Andrew made a decision to employ sex workers because he was frustrated by the inaccessibility to sex. He kept his experiences a secret out of the shame he felt. And as he wrote in a HuffPost article, the secret was killing him, and he had to just get it off his chest. Now Andrew and his mom share a very special bond, and his feelings around sex have shifted.
It's become so much more than that. It's become a way for me to express my sexuality in a way that is really, I'm in control of that. Like, I put the money down, I hire them, I work with them, so it's really powerful. And her reaction was, I remember we were talking about something else. We talk almost every day on the phone. We were talking on the phone, and we were talking about something else, and there was a pause in our conversation. And I just said, hey, Mom, I want to tell you that I work with sex workers. And there was a pause after that, and I was waiting for her to say, like, oh, no, the danger. She went, oh, okay. Well, that's new information. And we just chatted about it, and I realized, she said, oh, good for you, you're getting your needs met. And then all my fear went away.
Since turning to sex workers, Andrew wanted to further explore his sexuality and create a space for other disabled people to enjoy themselves. In 2015, he organized an accessible sex party called Deliciously Disabled in collaboration with his friends at Oasis Aqua Lounge.
Oasis Aqua Lounge is a water-themed, clothing-optional adult playground for consenting adults who are 19 plus. We provide a sexually liberated, clothing-optional venue for adults who want to express their fantasies and desires and to also connect intimately with their partners. In 2015, I had met with my friend Stella, and we had wanted to host a sex-positive party for people with disabilities. Because Oasis Aqua Lounge has a lot of stairs and we're a very old building, unfortunately the venue itself cannot accommodate people with mobility devices and other people that might have physical challenges. So we decided to host this party off-site. We contacted a venue called Buddies in Bad Times Theater, and from there the party took off. We had a third person join us in the planning, Andrew Morrison Gurza, and together the three of us planned this event that was supposed to emulate a sex party that would happen at Oasis Aqua Lounge, but in a venue that was accessible to everybody.
I realized once I got laid regularly, I was happier. And I mean, I don't mean that to be like, yeah, once I got laid, it was great. Truly, I was happier, and people could notice that I was happier, and I was like much more outgoing and much more like, yeah, and I was excited to share stories with people about my sex life because I was actually finally having the sex that I wanted. And so I think it really does impact your mental health. And when you're disabled and so isolated, especially now that it's almost winter, like, people with disabilities can't just go out and hang out.
Disability rights activists believe that opening a dialogue about sexuality and disability is crucial to combat fear, discomfort, and misinformation around them.
The media attention leading up to that event really opened up a lot of dialogue about sex and disabilities. About a couple of months before the party actually happened, which was in August, there was a bit of a media frenzy. There was a story that was written by the Toronto Sun, and they had discussed a disabled orgy, which wasn't necessarily how we wanted to position the event, but those articles actually sort of took off, and they provided conversations all over the world. So it was a really exciting time because for the first time people were really curious and talking about people with disabilities and sexuality.
During the 2015 federal election campaign, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau vowed to review the prostitution laws. It's been 4 years since the Liberals came into power, and 6 years since the Supreme Court ruled that Canada's prostitution laws were unconstitutional. Still, nothing has changed.
When the Conservatives came out with the law to criminalize the purchase of sex but make selling sex legal, they were copying what's called the Nordic model.
It's important to note that the sale and the purchase of sex has never been illegal in Canada. That changes today.
So when they came out with these new laws, they knew that they couldn't make it criminal to sell sex. So they make it illegal to purchase sex. It's illegal to basically like start a commercial enterprise. So like escort agencies, technically they're illegal, although there's so many of them.
For policy, we need to decriminalize sex work. We need to because also the other side of sex work is I'm a disabled client, but there are also disabled workers who use sex work as a way to survive, and because it allows them to be freelance, that's how they make their money. So we need to decriminalize all of that stuff and see it, especially around the disabled body, as a need. It's a need. We need people who are enacting policies that reflect the day-to-day of being disabled. And once we have that, everything will change around disability. We don't even have that in the States. We have all these laws around disability. But who wrote it? Did a disabled person write it? Or did they interview 1 or 2 disabled people and do some policy consultation and then put an act together? Yeah, that's what happened. We know that's what happened. And so we need more voices actually writing this stuff and saying, hey, my lived experience means that this doesn't work, Mr. Trudeau. How do we get this to work?
In the Netherlands, prostitution is legalized. There's even medically assisted sex for people with disabilities that's covered by benefits. Their government subsidizes sex for people with disabilities because intercourse is viewed as a form of mental and physical therapy. For this reason, disability rights activists perceive sex as a right and a health issue.
I have my shirt on right now, but I do have the words tattooed on my chest. I'm gonna see if I can get it up for you. Nope, can't, but they're but they're on there. And I remember going into the tattoo shop and saying like, hey, can you put queer cripple on my chest? And the guy was like, really? You want that? And I was like, yeah, I do. Could you do that, please? And I told my mom, and she was like, really? That's what you want to put on your chest for your whole life? And I was like, yeah, because it's an important. Also, when I get naked with a person and I have intimacy, they have to look at that. And they have to know that that's a part of who I am. And if they're going to have sex with me or have sexual contact with me, this is part of who you're sleeping with.
I truly believe that sexuality is a human right. And sexuality, the expression of sexuality goes beyond the act of having sex. It's thoughts, desires, expressing that through non-sexual activities like writing or dance or even just conceiving something that you want to try. And I feel like everybody should have that right to be able to explore that. And I feel like mainstream society isn't really set up for people that have different challenges, and that it's we live in a very able-bodied world, and that limits a lot of people. And so even though Oasis Aqua Lounge is not set up for people with mobility devices, I still believe that we can take our values and we can bring them to a different space. And I'm somebody who definitely believes that if you can't do something one way, you can do it a different way.
I wish that people would, don't be nervous. Like, yes, we're nervous to ask questions about sex, but everybody wants to know. And I am one of the people who can offer you an answer. Me and a whole bunch of other disabled people, we're doing this work for you to be educated. So ask us.
For the Ryerson Documentary Unit, I'm Menna Elnaka.